Okay, so we're recording again. We're back. Hour 2. Yay. Now, did anybody have any specific questions, especially on, at least to start with, on Outlook first? And then if there's not any on Outlook, we can absolutely dive into the Excel, or after that, any topic with, that we're working on.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that.
It was so good, no one has any questions.
That's always the first impression we get when nobody says anything. But when people first start talking, it often happens anyway.
Did it make sense? Especially the actually on here, how many people have actually played with column objects in Outlook? Is it something that you've used before? All right, thank you for. I wish I could say your name, Mauricio. Am I close?
Yeah.
Marie. Cool.
Close enough. Fair enough. Yeah, use common Excel, never Outlook, which is also fair enough. A lot of people, I think, start with Excel, and that's I think that's a good starting place. That's for sure.
Hey, Brad, are you saying you want to be unmuted? I'm going to assume so, and I'll mute you. But okay.
Yes.
Do you see him yet? There he is. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, because one of the headphones on this headset does not work. Hey, Joe, how much weight have you lost? You look great.
Thanks. 32 pounds so far, but yeah. I sadly I'm like halfway there. Is that scary or what?
Well, I'm in your boat. I could lose 50 pounds.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm doing right now, and you know that I have all these orders, and I get to do CVO routers, and with the help of you guys and information I've gathered, what takes somebody 45 minutes to do, I can do in about 15.
No.
Now, the thing that I've got is I'd love to be able to, I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I'd love to be able to just pull those variables out of the Excel spreadsheet, kind of like what you did. But the mail thing is really interesting too, but I don't have an application for that. Yeah. But, so what I do is I obtain, I manually put in these, the variables I need for this particular router, and then it's in memory. So when I want to paste it somewhere else, I just say, device out, and it puts it in there. But once it's in Excel, I would have loved to have been able to read that. And I don't want to take up any time here. If you have something to review on how to do that, that'd be great.
Well, we have the the Excel webinar, right, which will definitely get you started. I also have, I think, like 12 to 15 Excel videos, on my website through a lot of the stuff. But and I'll be sending this out later. But this little bit of like using, I think, when I helped you before in that one thing, I don't think we ever touched Excel. Is that right?
That is correct. We looked at doing it. It was a long way around on the other one and a whole lot of work. Where this has come out to be a little simpler, and I can just send you the scripts that I have, and you can get a look at them.
But the like this function here and here, these are in my Excel library, which it's on my website, but I need to update it. But I can send you that anyway. It makes it really easy to programmatically interact with Excel. I don't mean my functions, but AutoHotkey does. And in this one in particular, I'm like, okay, I want to identify the column that is this, and then later in this LOC object, right, I reference those locations, and because this is returning like A and D and C, right, and then I get the whatever row I'm in. But that ability to I shouldn't have closed Excel. I don't know why I closed. I guess such an old habit, from people with computers where memory used to matter. that ability to be in here and just be highlighting something and hit a button, which is another thing of like why I try to explain to people why AutoHotkey is so awesome, because I can programmatically interact, as I'm using a program, grab, highlight something and hit a button, and, it acts just on that. And that's the same thing with web browsing. It's really helpful.
But Brad, how would you know where you put the value of whatever it is that you need?
Well, I have to put it, we have an ordering system, and I just thought it was ridiculous where I would have to do, cut and paste and keep copying the serial numbers and all the other stuff. So I just hover over it and I say dev out. It's very simple stuff compared to what you guys do. But, I'd like to take that next hop into learning how to do more sophisticated things. But
how do you interact with I think you said it's an ordering system?
Yes.
Is it a browser you're using, or is it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a hardcore program.
Were you, I don't recall, were you at our last webinar?
No, I missed it. I didn't, and I haven't watched it yet either.
Well, because we had some stuff there, but I'm not going to tell you. No, I'm kidding. There's a function in it called, what was it, Jackie?
FineText.
FineText. And it's one, it's also, if you look at my website, I have a couple videos on it. But it can be used where you could go tell it, find on my screen somewhere, look for this text, and basically it's kind of like web scraping in the sense that you can see where you are and then move over to the right or to the left and enter, the value that you have. And so you could automate the whole process, I bet.
Oh, I got to see this.
Yeah, it was, and it's once you get, that's why I did a video, because I looked at it like, I think it's been around for years, the actual function. And I looked at it once, and I'm like, I don't understand this thing at all. And then I saw someone else, a couple people commented on, wow, this is like, a really helpful function. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna spend a little time. And when I dug into it, after I learned the basics, which took, well, on my end, it took me a little bit longer. But if you watch my video of here's what you're looking at and here's how to use it, it's like 5 minutes, right? And you're like, okay, now I understand what I'm supposed to do.
It's an interesting program. It does a kind of combination of image search and what pixel search.
What's it called? The
Find text. Find, but just like finding text, but find text. It's just done by someone who thought in a little different way of how to do this stuff, which is great because that actually gives it its own use case, whereas it isn't actually finding an image in the same way that AutoHotkey's built-in way of finding images does it. But it's you can still copy a piece of the screen and search for that, but it just uses another method of doing the same kind of thing. It just doesn't do it in full colors because it's just used for text.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
The other thing is the name is a little misleading in that because it's not looking for text, right? It's looking for a pattern of stuff. But it maybe Jackie, does it work best on text? Is that a better way to summarize it? It's just that I used it for
it works well on high contrast.
Okay.
Stuff. And text is often found in high contrast to the background. So
yeah. Because I used it on I was telling Jackie, I think before the webinar started, I used it in Tableau because they didn't have any way for me to interact programmatically, and I could find some text, and I wrote a couple functions to say after you find it, move there, but move like 20 pixels to the right. So that's what you're like, oh, okay, here's the thing, but I want to find that, and then when I actually send the text, I want to go to the right and click, and then send text there. And it was like, wow, I was cranking stuff out in no time.
I'm going to have to take a look at that because that's a big deal.
Yep.
Sure. I'm thinking that if your hardcore program is hard to work with, this is at least one option for working with that, and then just using COM like we'd seen all the other times for Excel. And depending on however your Excel sheets are actually formatted, it could be a matter of just thinking up a system for you that will actually let you paste out whatever column or whatever of the line that you need. I don't know how your data is structured, but let's at least presume that would be possible.
Let me just do a really quick review of how you can use a tool, right? Yeah. Here's the overall tool to help you get started. So you hit capture, and then you say, what do I want to find? Let's say I want to find this, this. Well, actually, so now it says, is this what
how do I make that? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Right. Is this what you're looking for? Okay. I'm gonna this is where it got a little confusing. You got to first pick either color or gray scale. And I'm not going to get into here. Just watch the videos, right? So once you pick that, I'm going to trim it. Now this is what I want to look for. I'm going to put in a comment here. Shift with M, and this will be meaningful here in a second. Now I'm going to hit OK, and now I'm going to test it. And so this part says, oh, it found it, and I'll hit OK. Watch what happens to my mouse. I'm not going to move it. You see my mouse move up there? That's where it just moved my mouse there for me, right? And basically, this is the function call right here. Oh, and I should have said, so when I click in here, this is the image in underscores and O's of what it's looking for. Okay. And then what you can do is you can take this code, and basically as long as the rest of it's the function, which you can put in your library and you don't have to have it in your code. But this was the, hey, go find it. And here it's saying basically go find this. And if you find it, then basically do the mouse move and show the other stuff, right? But the other, and Jackie, I was thinking also doing stuff when you were talking. I don't know if you mentioned it, but you don't have to save a local file of the image, which is awesome, right? It's this is the actual converted over like into an algorithm type structure of what the image is.
So can it so when you see the image, can it pick the text, or is it an image?
Well, it's an image.
Okay.
That's why I didn't like the name FineText, because it's an image. The image gets converted into I don't know if that's ASCII code, but gets converted into characters to look for it. But this literally is what it's looking for right here.
That is cool.
Yeah, and then you can do other things to tweak how soft and hard they're matching on. You can define where you're looking, if it could be anywhere in the screen. The more you narrow it, the faster it'll be, right? If you can limit where it's, because I have 3 large desktops, and it's going to look everywhere versus, it's always on this screen up in this area, right? Why should I look everywhere for that?
Yeah, okay. I think the guy that actually made it, he had an idea of actually finding a string of text on the screen.
Yeah.
Because if you actually look in the function, you have some OCR in there and stuff like that. So I think that his initial idea was to find a string of text on the screen. And with him actually just working on it, it has become more than that. But he's just never changed the name. And as you told me at one point, Joe, I think he's Asian or of Asian origins or something like that.
Yeah.
And that also means that his documentation for the function is not that it's actually lacking, but he's just wording some of the stuff in there differently. So actually figuring out why he has kept the name FineText, that's hard to say. But it works quite well at actually finding those patterns on screen.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I like it a lot. I think it's pretty, this stuff is just fascinating to me. I just wish I knew more about it.
It just baby step into it, man. Keep learning slowly.
Yeah. Well, that's what I plan on doing, so. All right. Well, that's all I had. So I just can look at the stuff you did today, and I can look around.
And for sure, look up the Excel one that we did, because one of the first things that we do is actually show how you grab a value from any arbitrary cell and you have a lot of options. You can say, I want column FJ, row 165 or whatever, and then you'll get the value from that cell. Or you can do lookups and do searches and whatever you need for your data structure.
Okay.
Another great one is using an offset, right? So once you find the thing you want, you can basically say go over 5 or go up 4, right? Whatever. So you typically you want to find something because there's something else next to it, or in the same row or column, and using an offset's an easy way to do that.
Yeah, I've often used that for, let's say I have the email in row 6, and I only know the email or the IP address or whatever it might be. That's the thing I know. But to get the code or whatever passphrase or whatnot it might be, that's over in row 64. Then that's just offsetting it by 58, and I have it.
Ah, that is cool.
Yeah, so basically you could say, look in column A for this email address. When you find it, that's where you use the offset and it just to move over, right, to that column and say, now give me that value, right? And it's the only thing I would say is, when you deal with a number versus text, Jackie, you taught me that during the webinar. Instead of returning the value, what was it, text or something?
Yeah, returning the text, yeah.
Yeah, and that'll not give you like 20 digits of decimal places, because I would return the value and then I'd have to round it. But he showed me in the webinar, it was like, oh, you could just return the text, and it truncates all those extra decimal places.
Yeah, it's what you tell Excel to actually return. When you tell it to return the value, you actually get, let's say, the formulated value of the cell. So if you have formulas and stuff.
I do. Some of these, they do. I do have that.
So the text can be one way to get around it, and sometimes you actually need the calculated value. So it simply depends on whatever.
Yep.
And you probably need to try some of the different.
Well, you got to play with it. That's just how it works.
The other thing you can do, which when I was doing stuff in email marketing, I automated all of my reporting, and what was really cool was in Excel, instead of, let's say I was calculating the click-through rate of this, right? Instead of calculating it and putting the value, using AutoHotkey, I would put in the function to take the average of these, right? And that way, if anything changed, it updated, right? So that was the beauty of, you don't think of it that you have to insert an actual value. You can tell it, put in a formula here instead of the value. And that way, if someone else later changes the data point, it gets updated.
Okay. Okay. That's, it's just...
It never ends,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. Plus, I got to apply all this, and I haven't studied enough on routers either. I got to get back to that. So, well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure that I put my Facebook page. You guys are, with the next webinar.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll put your other ones up there too. So.
Thank you. Yeah, share them. That's awesome. I mean, we, like I said, we're not trying to make money. We want to help more people have a better life.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, if you really knew this stuff, it makes things way easier.
Yep. Zachary has a question. Did you want to get unmuted, Zachary, or? Nope.
I'm at work. Fair enough. Yeah.
He's building every time. You see it's getting a little wider. He's got to write a long sentence this time.
That's fair enough.
Well, I got to go. I got to go take care of somebody's here. But thank you guys so much for doing this.
Yep. Thanks, Brad.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Scale out or market your services. Well, that's a. Can you be a little more specific? it, you know, it just depends, right? I think the best way is to figure out what needs people have, and typically for each person, it helps because my background's in email marketing, and in research and in using Office, and so I focus a lot on those because I used to see when I was in the office, I'd see people at work doing things, especially salespeople, and so I know there are some unmet needs, and so I would write scripts to solve those. Right, the better you can figure out what are unmet needs, what's going to have a demand. That's what I would say is and especially also because you're also battling all the other people, right? If you have direct insights as to what kind of value within that industry or in that area, right, that you can bring, then that's another area I'd say is you hone in there a little, also.
Yeah, I'd say that wherever you have some kind of prior knowledge, if you already, let's say, are at work automating some of the stuff there, that's one way to look at it. I've done that quite a bit, and that's helped my actual career, and that's great. And I've tried to use my free time on actually automating stuff for companies that had different kinds of needs on the hour, paid some kind of fee for each hour I actually sat down and coded. That worked as well, but yeah, it's for me with the salary amounts that you actually need in Denmark to actually make it work. It was hard to actually make enough for me to ever consider that as something truly worthwhile. But it could be done. I'm pretty sure that people have done it. I know a few people in the community has done it for at least some periods of time. But again, I know Joe has done it as well. He has some clients here and there, and they're willing to pay whatever value they see in their idea, and you can make a fair amount of money if you just find that niche where people don't know where else to actually get the stuff done. Because if you go to an actual developing code company, they will put up an amazing cost or quote, and if you're just a single developer or programmer, coder, scripter, whatever you like calling yourself, you can do a lot of this stuff without a hotkey at a much lower rate or much lower price, which is interesting to people who are doing, let's say, at one point I helped a company that was doing customer acquisition for Lyft. People in the US should know Lyft at least.
Yeah.
And the stuff I made for them, scraping some customer information and stuff like that, worked out really, really great for them, and they had a great economic return on it. So whatever I actually did was of great value to them. So I didn't have a hard time of actually getting paid for that. But again, at the moment, I have a few standalone softwares that I'm actually selling at a one-off price a piece, and people are happy to pay whatever I value that at, and of course that's one way of doing it as well. Let's say you had come up with this idea of FineText, and that hit the nail on whatever niche market had a need for actually finding stuff like that, or the one that Joe he displayed at the beginning. Do you remember what was it that you displayed today? It wasn't actually, maybe it was before the video, but it was quick access pop-up.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one.
Yep.
Whereas, again, I've seen other AutoHotkey products like it, whereas I can't remember if it's quick fast keys or something like that, which if you search for it online, you might be able to find it. And they also charge a small amount per software license. And again, it's made in AutoHotkey, and it's simply a matter of finding just that one small place where you fit in and is able to actually make some money.
So it's interesting. And by the way, so on the screen here, at a high level, just because we're on topic, there's three main, kind of breaks down to me in three main ways. You can write really generic programs that'll have a really large audience, and unless you're spending a lot of time and money, you're probably going to charge a very small amount for that program, right? Then there's going to be some custom scripts that you sell to like an individuals or company. Those you can make a lot more money at, but the audience is, per sale, but the audience is much smaller. And then there's the other one, which Jackie mentioned, was just straight up getting paid to code to solve things. You don't own the IP. That's just working by the hour, basically, right? And you're never going to get rich that way. Not that that's your goal, right? But it can help pay the bills, and you can learn to code doing that, right? But this is the slide deck from our last webinar. But it just dawned on me of like, that's why I kind of categorize them in those three things. But the really great one is, man, if you can find something that's like a licensing fee, where every month they pay a service fee to use your tool, that's where most companies go. Like, that's the bread and butter, right? You can make some good money doing that. It's just figuring that out.
Yeah. I can see he mentioned automated.
That was what I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
That they use at work, and a number of functions which seems to be a lot faster to develop than code in AutoHotkey, which of course I don't know automated. And if it's some kind of drag and drop coding, that might be quicker. But again, it depends on your knowledge with the tool that you're using. There's very few things that I find that are quicker than whatever I need in AutoHotkey. Right. But again, I'm well versed in actually using AutoHotkey for whatever Windows throws at me. But again, if you had a tool like Automated, and it's tailored for one specific type of automation, it will of course be a better tool at doing that exact automation that AutoHotkey.
That's a great point, Jackie. Yeah. So I think I actually categorized it as a webinar, but we had an industry expert, Charlie Simmons, who's Tank on the forum, where there was I think 4 or 5 of us, and we actually talked through. Is it in here? Web service. No, I guess I didn't put it in here, but I have a link to it. I'll find it. Where I think he does actually use Automate It. It's either that or the main, was it Blue Prism? I think is the main biggest competitor. There were a couple that are really expensive, which is what I want to bring up about Automate It, right? Of course, at work, your company's paying for it, I got to guess, and so you have access to it. But if you want to do stuff on your own, you probably don't have access to it, or you can't hand that over to a client. And so I don't know. Can you compile it and give it to them? Because I don't know Automate either. But Charlie talked about it and saying like they have to use it because they need a GUI type thing. That's what the clients want. But he also, it's like sometimes depends on your needs. What you're trying to do can be incredibly painful to do. If all you have is GUI, you have to do everything through a GUI versus AutoHotkey. Man, you can do some really amazing stuff in very small amount of code. But again, it definitely depends on what you know, right? I agree with that.
Yeah, I say a lot of people starting with AutoHotkey or comes in through Pullover's MicroCreator, which Absolutely. Is also totally written in AutoHotkey, which is again a drag and drop and record your actions. And at one point when he was actually working on it a lot, he actually managed to do some very fine ways. So you could even record your COM interactions. So if you were working in Excel, instead of him actually recording your mouse moves and stuff like that, it would actually do the same thing as the VBA macro recorder. So of course, if someone sits down and makes money from automating whatever tasks, of course they will probably be able to do it in what seems like shorter amount of time than AutoHotkey, because AutoHotkey actually asks you to program or write code. I would love to actually see automated or
Yeah, me
blue
too.
or as an example. But again, I've also seen AutoHotkey, which is a true mirror of AutoHotkey, and I've seen a lot of other different macro recorders of different types. And of course, these things get more and more advanced. I've also seen these have you seen those, Joe, where you just drag the code, or you actually drag an image or a representation of code?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
have. Yeah,
yeah. Some people also find that that is way more logical because you can actually see the logical flow of whatever is happening. But again, it's hard to say. You need to use the tool that you are good at.
yeah. Well, and depending on the tool, possibly review others to decide if you should be using something else. But yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I first learned AutoHotkey, I had a hard time of actually knowing if I should trust these people who were already in the community, they kept almost chanting this, you need to use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that really mean? But again, for them, it was maybe a matter of how close to the actual machine the stuff was. But if you need to do this, you need to use C++. If you need to do this, you need to use C. If you want to get good at actually knowing what the memory of the computer is doing, you need to do it in C. And if you just want object-oriented stuff, you need to use C#. And yeah, every task you have, you can always find something that's more tailored to that. And again, I'm just loving that AutoHotkey is free, and I can do almost anything on Windows with it.
It's insane, right? How much the options are.
Yeah, and again, I could do the same with, let's say, Python or maybe even Ruby or Lisp or some of all the new other scripting languages that are out there. And again, if you sit down and learn Python, you will have an easier time of marketing your own skills because it's a more known scripting language.
Right.
And by using a more known scripting language, you might not be able to actually develop something quicker, but people will be more inclined to hiring you because someone else before you knew did also know that, and by that, that's what they already have. So that's what they need.
Captain Odin wants us to code in assembly language.
Yeah. I don't think that will be funny.
Maybe before I die. Maybe.
I remember back on my Commodore 64, where I would just sit with the backside of this magazine and then just type in all the sequential letters to actually make a thing move on the screen.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
And then you were going to say you were so excited. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Poke 287. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's just funny.
Yeah, no, it's funny because that's why I keep saying it. Even though like I said, I made AutoHotkey merchandise, right? I'm like I love it it's a great gateway to help simplify your life, but I will use anything else if it's easier, right? I don't care. The one thing I do is if I find a tool out there, and like I can write an AutoHotkey, but I borrow from the other thing to understand how it works, I'll do it just because then if, one is I'm not relying on a different program that goes away, but two is that other tool probably doesn't do exactly what I want. And if I have it in my tool and it takes me a couple hours, I'd rather have it in my, area that I can mess with than use something else.
Yeah, because I don't really need to code to perform whatever task I have at work, I do it because it makes the task more fun or easier or whatever it might be. I have had a very hard time of moving away from AutoHotkey just because I want to know another language. Of course, I've tested different stuff in other languages, but to actually move from AutoHotkey to, let's say, Python, just because I actually want to make sure a window has focus, or grab that text from that field over there, or do this with Excel, or something with Outlook. Why would I actually learn an entire new language like Python, where stuff is just done in truly different ways? One of the things that hurt me a little bit was that, okay, so if you want to automate the browser with Python, you have the choices between this module, and this library. And over here, they're doing it this way. Over here, they're doing it that way. And then there's this funny way that he thought up over here. And that's up to you which one you want to do. And to me, when using AutoHotkeys, let's say COM with IE and stuff, is that I felt that the developers, Chris and Lexicos, and some of the other people like Sean and stuff, they implemented it in what to me looks like the way it was originally thought by Microsoft, when it's COM at least, the dot syntax. Whereas when we look at stuff like Selenium, whereas you can control, let's say, an instance of Chrome with the Selenium driver, but the way you're doing it, you need to learn new ways of finding stuff on the web page. You need to learn a different way of traversing the DOM, and because all of the functions and stuff like that are called totally different from the way that it's done in, let's say, JavaScript. But if you go up and look up a way of doing whatever you need to find on a web page with JavaScript, it will look almost the same without hotkey. And that's one of the things that I like.
Yeah, and that was what I mentioned earlier too, is because it comes up, and I'm still trying to, I need to come up with that killer sentence that explains, when I tell people I automate things, they think of more like marketing automation, or even like with Python doing stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing stuff on servers. I'm doing it on a local desktop computer. But more importantly, more often than not, I'm interacting with users doing something, and I want to grab that program by the lapels, get something from it, and then possibly either store it, send it somewhere else and do whatever. And that's what AutoHotkey is amazing at. I like to, what Jackie was saying, I literally did try to switch over to Python. I shouldn't say switch, but I tried, because I wasn't going away from AutoHotkey. I just had to learn everything in Python. And so I did it for like a year and a half, and it was just so painful for me to do everything in Python. One was I didn't learn it, but it was new to me. But even then, it was like I'd ask experts in Python, and they're like, yeah, I'm not sure how, you'll have to figure that one out to do this and this. And I realized for my goals and needs, AutoHotkey was a great fit.
Sure. We were just asked which project we have completed that we were the most proud of. And of course, I don't think I have any to really share code from, but as I mentioned earlier, the one with the company that worked with Lyft, I loved the way that I actually managed to do that, because they wanted me to scrape the front end of the website. So you would log in as yourself, and you would have access to this data. And instead of them having to log in manually and find the data each time, they would love to actually copy it all out into a Word or an Excel sheet as an example. But because the page was updated with new information constantly, because it was information coming in from all across the US, they had to log in quite frequently and update whatever they had originally written down. So they wanted to automate that. And because of I'd say almost pure luck, because I was trying to figure out the most easy way of doing it. I found out that the company that was the way the company had built their own website was that they were using a very easy to access REST API to get the data to the user, but the way they were displaying it was very not that it wasn't structured, but it was in a way where you needed to go from tab to tab, page to page, over and over, click an element to get the rest of the information shown and stuff like that. And the weird part was that they had an API that was very easy for themselves to work with, but when a user accessed their site, it was just scrambled up in a way that wasn't actually very accessible. But because I figured that out, I could very easily write a script that would just ask the server for the information and get it all delivered in JSON. And then I could just phrase it over and make it into an Excel sheet. So I was very proud of that because it actually made it very, very simple, both for me, but also for them.
You know, the other one, Jackie, because, you know, and we won't talk specifics, but I remember one project you explained to me where you did it, at least the first version of it, very quickly, where people, they had two guys working and there would be a document and one would like look at it and the other one would literally write it down and then they had, you know, go enter it somewhere else, right? And it's like, that changes people's lives, right? And you spend a couple hours to get the first, you know, version done and they're blown away, right?
That was magic. That was one of those where I had a feeling that the script I made actually went viral within a company. It was just weird because I was sitting at my desk and I saw two of my colleagues sitting on the other side, and they started scribbling stuff down on their block on their table, and I was thinking, what are they actually? Why do they keep typing some? And then they were looking at the screen and changing something with their mouse, and then they would scribble on that block again. And so I actually stood up and went over to one of them and said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, but we have to move this data from this window over to this window over here, and I need to take 5 values from here to over here." And so instead of me going back and forth and copying, and the last one here, I can't actually copy that to the clipboard, so I need to write it down. I was like, "Oh, can you show me that one more time? So I might be able to help you with that." And I actually said that, and I went back to my own desk and tried it. And within maybe half an hour, I had something that worked for me at least.
Yeah.
And I asked one of them to test it out, and all it did was grab the 5 values. Also, luckily enough, the 5th one was actually accessible to AutoHotkey, whereas you couldn't copy it by selecting it, but the text of the control was still available. So it was very easy to actually go in, grab the stuff, move it to the clipboard, open the other window up, find the 5 correct controls in that, and paste in the values. And it was just like, oh my God. And it was very simple. They selected the row, and that was all of the information that the script needed, because that's the next row. So that was the first version of it. They had a piece of it that they still did manually, but they did no longer have to switch windows. They did no longer have to actually write anything down manually. They still had to sit there, do, let's say, 30% of the tasks still of actually finding the next row that needed to be moved over. But other than that, it was just, and they, within a day or something, they had told it to our team manager, and within the week, she had actually taken it to management and wanted it to roll it out to more people in the team, because it was a big task that needed to be done. So I actually figured out that they had hired some cheap labor in another country to do the same task as well, because there was so much data that needed to be moved.
Wow.
And yeah, so it ended up being maybe 50 to 100 people that ended up using that script, and I made it in an afternoon or something.
So mine, even though it's not to me that like cool, because it's just really web scraping some stuff, but at TI when I was working there, I went to this one thing we were testing the new web pages, and their idea of testing was you get like 8 people in a room and you manually hover over each link and click it and do all the stuff. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. So I haven't used this thing in over a year, but let me see if it'll work. So you go to a page and you say, oh, I want it. I'm going to hit submit. And notice it added numbers to everywhere there. Now it's going to make it a little prettier. And it's pinging each of the URLs to make sure they're valid, right? It returns an actual, a 200 instead of like a 400. But it also, this number here, that's what, when you saw this page, it got updated, right? It numbered each of these items. So if there is a problem, you have a key to kind of go back and look at it. But it also grabbed the names, the inner text, the actual locations of where they're going to, and it makes it really easy to spot errors, right? Then up top here, I have some of the other the keywords on the page, how many times it's written, just to help them get a summary of that, and as well as some of their tagging stuff. And that one, after that meeting, I went home, and about 4 hours, I wrote the first draft of this, it wasn't all the bells and whistles, but it was close enough. And they were like, they still, I know, use, a lot of people, probably like 15, 20 people use this a lot. And I'm sure it saves them a lot of time. And it's one, in that sense, I was so glad it helps people.
Yeah. I find that to be one of the more amazing ones that you have actually shown, and you have shown me that one before, and I love that it's both doing the work in Excel, and it's also changing what they're actually seeing on the web page and all of that stuff.
Right. That was what I'm like. It didn't dawn on me, but I'm like, I can dynamically rewrite that web page, right, for myself. Yeah. Obviously, not in the server. And to your question, Zachary, it was under 450 lines, and even then, there's a lot of stuff in here, I'm sure, that's just crap, right? Because I never go back and clean up stuff, but it's not a lot.
No, and some of those are probably comments and other stuff that you could probably remove if you wanted to.
The function about updating, so when you're using COM with IE, you can interactively, get any data you want from the page, or you can write to it, right? And so I just literally rewrote the HTML for the page, and the browser just updates on its own. I mean, it was super easy.
Zachary is asking what function was used to populate the numbers on the web page itself. Right. It's COM, and you're simply just manipulating the DOM.
Right.
I'm not sure if you're actually creating other elements or if you're just putting it in before the text within the same element or whatever you're doing, Joe. But it is one of the reasons that both me and Joe are saying that actually getting access via COM to these different things will make you able to do stuff that's just wow.
This is it right here, where I'm inserting a blue tag and then the index number of wherever I am in my structure, right? That's the number that gets put in. I mean, that's all it is right there, right? Is at that location, and then I'm I think adding a space or a return or something, but yeah.
Yeah, but still you're simply accessing that element out of HTML, and then you're just adding a text string to the HTML, and the browser itself is made in a way so that it will actually update the DOM by you doing that.
Right.
So yeah, that's just as if it was JavaScript doing it.
I'm looking at my code, and I'm almost embarrassed because I'm seeing stuff. I mean, I wrote this years ago, and I'm like, wow, I know so many better ways now to do some of this stuff. But
the good thing about it was that it actually worked.
Yeah, and it still works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is insane. The other thing I didn't even demonstrate, let me see if I pull it up, is I can actually choose, these are IDs on the page, and I'd have to use like a tool like this to see where it is. But I can choose basically, like that is the frame. Oh, actually, it's not. See that ID right there? I grabbed this one, but I could have grabbed that one. There we go. Now that will be just that area, right? I can specify that because all the stuff on the left and all the stuff above isn't part of what we were testing, and so I could easily right in here, choose the area I wanted to test, and then also say if I want to verify the URLs or not. Of course, if you don't, it's incredibly fast.
Yeah, but didn't we have a web scraping one, webinar on web scraping?
We did.
Yeah,
yep.
and that's a good one to go and look at if you want to get a quick and basic idea of what you can do by using, let's say, COM with IE. And that's also one of the reasons that when people come to the AutoHotkey forum and want to automate something within a browser, they're often very inclined to say, I want to do it in Firefox, I want to do it in Chrome, whatever they have chosen. And I would love to be able to help them with those browsers. But as they don't really allow you to do stuff with AutoHotkey on an active instance of that browser without actually, let's say, pasting JavaScript into the omnibar or into the console or whatever different ways people have done stuff. With IE, by using COM, you can just manipulate almost anything, which is, of course, only on the client's side. So you couldn't do anything server-wise per se. But yeah, your program, and that was one I made maybe a few years ago, maybe one of the biggest things I ever made was on one of Denmark's largest hospitals. I was working there and I was trying to help them implement asset management and we were using Maximo as a facility management program. And one of the things was that the interface, the way it was structured, and because the hospital didn't have that much money to actually buy thousands upon thousands of licenses to this very expensive facility management program, we did it in a way where we would use maybe 5 user accounts, and instead of people logging in individually, we would just timestamp their Windows username and some few other credentials on the back end of whatever word order they made. So it would still be from a specific person, but without them actually logging in as themselves. So we used whatever Windows knew about them because they had personally logged into that Windows machine. And that was also great. It maybe was rolled out to maybe 2,000 different workstations or something like that. And again, that was one of the things that really started me with working with the DOM and with, yeah, maybe even WIN requests and HTTP requests and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the other big one. Which I would say, if you guys are, if you're new to object-oriented stuff, if I could do everything over and have talked to like Jackie and said, hey, help guide me, which now I have the idea, I want to learn a lot of the stuff. Where do I start? Right. What my recommendation would be is start with like Excel, learning Excel, because Excel has a structure, and if I give it to Jackie, it'll run on his computer for the most part. Right. It's easy to keep that up. And when you find stuff on Stack Overflow and everything, right, it's more often than not going to work. It's very similar. Man, when you shift to web scraping, which is amazing, don't get me wrong, but because every web page is built differently and there's so many different ways, even though it's still reliable, the designers build them differently, and that's where I learned, and it was really a grind to learn on like the toughest out of all of it, right? I mean, that was like, everything was always different, and I didn't know it necessarily was different, but I was trying to learn it all, and it's like maybe trying to learn Chinese. If you're you never learned a new language, let's pick one of the harder ones that for English speaking people at least to pick up.
Danish as an example. I've always been told that that's quite hard to learn, but I don't think that it's actually that hard to learn. But okay, I'm a native Danish speaking person, but again, I think that most people can learn it to a degree, and then it's the finer nuances that are actually hard to master. But other than that, I think that what is it? Icelandic is one of the really hard ones. I think Finnish and Chinese, of course, and probably Swahili and some of the other African click noise languages are probably pretty hard to actually learn.
Cat Modem was sharing some code here. The first one, just basically, it would run the code you have highlighted. But this one, I'm trying to figure out what it's doing when he says it gets the objects in a list to satisfy some condition. That's what I'm. So it meets a certain type, I guess, is what he's saying. The condition, like a filtered condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So if you ran that, you would see names that start with G, as an example. That's what I'm seeing. So it's the get all that's actually the bread and butter of that one. Leech. That's the name. That's from the first one. That's the undead type. So that's what it is. And right now it's just going through the ones with G, and then it ended.
So the undead. Oh, I see here. Type undead. Okay, gotcha.
So you'll get leash and ghoul, and for the next one you will get golden dragon and ghoul. If I'm understanding that right, leech and ghoul and golden dragon and ghoul.
Nice.
So yeah.
Oh, this is a shorthand for a regex, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which
regex match.
I hope they finally updated the documentation, because that wasn't on the documentation anywhere. And Maestri has showed me that one time, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's like, oh, it's a shorthand for a regex match. And I'm like, where is that documented? I'm like, I've never seen that. And I tried to find it. And
don't you think it's just like with the append to string and the other ones? Don't you think it's in there? I'm pretty sure it is in there.
Well, it wasn't. There's the overall regex match page, and there's a second one that's often also used.
Yeah, you're right. It's not in there. That's for true. No, it is really well hidden, but I remember finding it way back when. But you couldn't actually search for those things on the different searches because they were too short.
Yeah, and that's why it was so hard to figure out what someone uses it, but you're like, I can't find out what that means.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly.
Cool.
But it's some. I think it's under assignments or something. I can't remember what they're actually called. Those are they called assignments?
Shorthand. Yeah, it was on. I remember seeing it here, but I'm like, there's a like, why isn't it on this page? Right? If it's a shorthand for regex match, why in the world isn't it on this page?
Yeah, but shorthands for whatever is probably never on those. Okay, there might be for and or, but I don't think that there is that many shorthands. But again, is there actually? It's there now. I saw it was there now.
Oh, is it good? Well, they added it then, because
yeah, there you have with an
expression. Because I'm like, it was nowhere.
No, it wasn't there. That's for sure. I remember it not being there, but I just believed that it was Just like you have, yeah, you have some there, but it wasn't there.
No, so it's not on the quick reference one, which I
No.
would also think, yeah, you know, I can see it not being here. But the other one, I'm glad it's there now.
Yeah. I was like, but where do we actually see all of the what's they call? I would really love to know what we call these. This the colon and the equal. They're called something probably. I just can't remember what that is. Equal sign operator. Are they called operators?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best.
Yeah, maybe. Assignment operators, could that be a thing they were
Yeah,
called?
that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, but yeah, I don't know if they are actually documented anywhere. There's expressions, there's if, and there's other stuff like that, but I don't think that the operators are actually documented anywhere.
Is that too basic of a concept to do like a webinar on? Of
You found it. There it is.
yeah, no, Cat Moden, you know, he sent it.
Okay, so
And
he
I,
knew where it was.
yeah, and I did remember this is where Maestrith and I ended up finding it. But still, I'm like, well, you know, why in the world isn't it on the regex match page? I mean, that just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you're right, and it came. It was there now.
Should we have a webinar on talking through? Because I was talking, he left earlier, and I'm trying to think of his name.
Thomas?
Yes. He said, you know, he likes AutoHotkey overall, but he gets confused in the syntax and when to use percent signs around variables and not. And I was thinking, you know, maybe we have a webinar topic of topics like that and using, you know, different types of loops and you know, and logic, you know, and the ternary.
Yeah, we could probably have that. Yeah.
I know it's more intro, but maybe that'll draw a different group that people that need help.
Yeah, probably just basic operations with all of what you see here, all of the operators, expressions, and AutoHotkey, because they are actually quite powerful. But a lot of people probably don't really use them because they only use the commands of AutoHotkey.
Right.
But yeah,
like
that
this
could be one thing.
This alone, the plus plus or minus minus, right, is such a great easy way to increment something. And yet I almost never see them used.
The bitwise not, is that really what they're calling it? Or that's probably what it's called. I'm not saying that's what they call it. It's not even the sign that we actually talked about for regx. That is the bitwise not. Is the other one there at all? Could you do a normal search on that page?
Apparently there's 7 of them. So that's the one we're on.
There it was.
Oh, paths. All right. Oh, so that was all 7.
Oh, but you had one of them there. You had it just after that one. There. It's the ones selected right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the shorthand for regx match. Yeah. It can be useful. That's for sure. But again, it's just like the ternary operators. If you don't really keep your wits about you, it will just obscure your code. It will very easily make it quite hard to reread at a later point. And that's one of the reasons that I don't use ternary operators very often.
Ken has a question here. We're going to unmute him. Unmute. All right, Ken, start swearing like crazy. Oh, that's... Can you talk? Ken? Oh, wait, it said unmute him on the phone. I'm sorry. Is there a phone number somewhere? Oh, there it is. Okay, bear with me. All right, now try it.
Well, I know it is a family-friendly show, so I'll keep it all clean and not swear like the sailors I'm descended from.
Awesome. How's it going?
It's all right. I have a question that may be incredibly elementary, but in the past I've been able to use in writing hotkeys using a key combination of the Win key plus Control, or the Win key plus Shift, or the Win key plus Alt and plus something else, in order to do pairs of commands, like a copy to a clipboard and then paste out of that clipboard, right?
Yep.
For some reason, I've been unable to figure out why that will not work for me any longer. I'm on Windows 10, and the research that I've done told me to go, reinstall to the latest version of AutoHotkey. That didn't solve the problem. Go use these like switchers to try to install a keyboard hook or something like that, and that didn't solve the problem. And I'm confused as to what might be the issue. So is there somewhere where I can see in the computer what is I guess what is taking precedence on the Win key, because I can get the code to work if I use any other key combination.
Yeah, the Win key has always been kind of a used by Windows thing. Even for me, I'm still on Windows 7 because I just chose to be. And I would not be able to use, let's say, WinD, because it's already built into Windows to actually show the desktop. So wherever I am, I could press Win and D, and the desktop would be the active window. And so I would not be able to actually bind any command without a hotkey to Windows D, because it's simply programmed so deeply into Windows, so that will simply overrule it all of the time. I would need to use some kind of other method of tricking my key into actually working that way. Not by the simple hotkey command would I be able to do it, because it simply can't be overridden, just like Control, Alt, and Delete can't be overridden. You would need to use some kind of hackery method of actually disabling those keys to make it not work.
Okay.
But Ken,
it used to work, and then now it doesn't. And so I think it was when I moved to Windows 10 that it ceased to function.
But which, did you say Windows C or Windows what? What used to work?
No, it used to, in order to use like Control, Windows key plus F1 would be to copy to a clipboard on that, and then Alt Windows key plus F1 would paste out that clipboard, so that I could have like 12 clipboards across the top on the function keys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, pairing it up with each function key. Or if I were to take a block of data and say, I need this parsed out into, it's 12 lines, and so I need it on 12 clipboards, and I want line 1 on F1, F2, F3, we'll skip F4 because you get it.
Yeah, function keys, and Jack and I have talked about this because he's helped me with it, are often kind of a pain. Right, Jackie, that they're not nearly as easy to use as the other keys, first off, at least from my experience.
I would say I do use them, but sometimes they have inherited meanings for, let's say, Windows or others. And let's just I guess that Windows 10 has maybe programmed some specific functionality into Windows F1 and Windows F2 and stuff like that. That will of course block you, but maybe simply running the script as an administrator, like Captain Wooden suggested.
I tried that. Yep, didn't solve the problem.
Didn't solve the problem. No. It's just one idea. One of the things that you can also do is, as soon as you install the keyboard hook, you will be able to open your script down in the right-hand corner and get a view. And by taking the key history, you'll be able to see if AutoHotkey is actually able to register whatever keys you are pressing. And that's one way of figuring out if what's happening is something built into Windows, or if it's something with your script, or if it's something with the keyboard hook, as an example.
In so that was really, so I want to ask, because I'm on Windows 10 and I've used Windows 10 on a lot of computers, and I use the Windows key to trigger hotkeys, and I've other than like Jackie's examples, Windows D, which I was demonstrating earlier, you didn't see it, but it didn't work for Windows D, but my Windows C works just fine. And then Cap Moden's just posted. I just tested right now, and you're looking at it. Hopefully, it ran fine. So I don't think it's necessarily a Windows 10 thing overall, right? I think you can get there, right? It's just maybe there's, first thing I would do is simplify it to just the Windows key and one letter, like UC, right? And see if you can just trigger that to do a message box, right? And after you do that, then start saying, now I'm going to throw in Control Windows C, right? And then you just change to the F, pick a function key that isn't maybe it's I don't know, try a couple, right? And just see if it still continues to work.
Just keep adding on a layer of complexity until it breaks.
That's right.
Yeah. And now I don't know if you're on a laptop or whatever, but sometimes, at least I had a keyboard at one point where I actually needed to press the blue FN key to actually access the F keys and stuff like that. I don't know if you have that kind of things on your keyboard.
I work on different keyboards, but mostly on a desktop keyboard. So, but I know what you're talking about, Jackie.
There's just one more layer to it. Yeah. But
all right, that's a good solution for me to follow. Thanks for taking my question.
No.
Absolutely.
If nobody else has a question, I guess you can mute me and then take the next question. Otherwise, I do have another question.
I think you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. For help with trying to build regular expressions, is there some sort of tool where you can paste in your sample haystack and then be able to, instead of needing to write out the actual regular expression, be able to highlight your needle and then highlight what you want to have stored into a variable, and then have it give you examples of code about what will get you what you just manually said. I want the script to find this in the haystack and then grab this.
I haven't seen a tool that does exactly that. I do remember before people making website like this, regex101.com, which is one of the best because it's using the same syntax as we in AutoHotkey do, default.
Yeah.
That is one of the best. But yeah, there were some regex tools made over the years, and some of them actually had, what would you call it, code helping functionality. So they would try to help you.
Yeah, this particular regex 101 was the last one I used when I had my last big project to try to figure out. So this is a great site. You're right, Jackie.
Yeah. But yeah, I know that there were regex tools. I haven't seen any recently, and I think that's because these online versions actually solve the most of the issues. but yeah, I don't have one up my sleeve at the moment that does what you're asking for.
I've
All right.
used, it's not going to still write your code, but it a lot of them are just helping show you what gets highlighted and everything. And apparently I moved my location of the one that I have in my, let me see if it's just I renamed it. But there's one in AutoHotkey. There's a couple in AutoHotkey that do similar stuff to this, right? But the actual of writing the regular expression, I haven't seen that.
Okay. Well, this one definitely helped me on my last one when I was trying to hunt for values and get them assigned for filling in a worksheet for a court reporter company. So, all right. Well, that's the answer to my question. Thanks for taking my 2 questions, guys.
This other one, the regex coach, is similar. Now, it's not an AutoHotkey, but it does some pretty cool stuff in showing you things that's easy to get through and iterate over which ones you're getting and change the formatting of what you're checking. It's not free, but it's pretty cheap. But I liked it. I liked it because it was offline at the time. I didn't have any other tools, and it helped me learn stuff.
Got it. All right. I think on my next thing, I will be using those again.
Cool.
Thanks again, guys.
You bet.
So we are also running a bit over time, Joe. I don't know about you, but I at least need to.
Yeah. Is there just real quick? Does anybody have anything else? If not, we can call it a day. I guess we're good.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Thanks to you all for showing up. Great stuff. Hopefully, people like the Outlook stuff, and
yeah,
we'll figure out. We're not sure what our next webinar is going to be on. If you guys have ideas, ping either Jackie or me or both of us, whatever.
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.